Good evening. Today I'm going to be reviewing Walter Isaacson's biography of Leonardo da Vinci. Um, I am so happy that I decided to read this. I was skeptical at first. I wasn't sure if I'm the kind of person who would enjoy reading a book about someone who lived 500 years ago, but I am so happy that I decided to read this book. I all the way through this book, I'm not somebody who is like in love with history, who loves reading biographies of all sorts of people. This is my first biography I've ever read, and all the way through this book, I was just completely captivated and interested in every word and every page. I'm so happy I read it. Leonardo da Vinci was probably one of the most remarkable human beings to have ever existed. Um, he's not the only remarkable being to ever exist, obviously. There are so many other people worth mentioning, but Leonardo da Vinci was special. He was genuinely special. There is so much information in this book, but all of it is interesting. Reading about all his paintings, and the most remarkable thing about Leonardo da Vinci that I learned before I knew, everything about him. I just thought he was a painter. I think most people just think of Leonardo da Vinci as a painter, but Leonardo da Vinci was pretty much a master at everything. He designed weapons and fortresses for war. He designed hydraulic systems. He designed machines. He produced an anatomical studies of the human body that were centuries ahead of its time. He was everything. He was trying to design and create instruments. He created pageants and theaters, everything. He did everything, and he was amazing at everything. Now, the reason he was so good at everything and the reason he was such a genius was because he was obsessed with learning, obsessed with discovering the unknown. He was curious. One of the main points Walter Isaacson pushes throughout this book is that Leonardo da Vinci was curious all the time about everything, and he pursued information for the sake of pursuing it. He was resentful towards wealthy patrons, people who tried to pay him to do stuff, people who just wanted his services and expected his loyalty and expected, hey, I'll give you a bunch of money, you should do this for me. Leonardo da Vinci resented all of that. He did things for the sake of doing them, and he only did things that he was interested in. He only did things that he was curious about. If he wasn't interested in it, he didn't do it. That's one of the things I admire most about Leonardo da Vinci. One of the other captivating things you learn about him throughout this book is that he was not a perfect man. Obviously, he was a human being, therefore he is open to flaws and imperfections. Um, there was so much of his work that he never published, so many pieces of art that he never finished. He left so many things unfinished. He would start one thing, and then he would get distracted and go and start something else and then never go back to it. Part of that is due to, it sounded like he was all over the place. Like he was borderline schizophrenic, honestly. But he was also a perfectionist. If he couldn't make it perfect, he didn't want anything to do with it, which can be seen as a flaw. But Walter Isaacson states that he believes that is not a flaw. It's the reason why some of his work came out so well. Learning about the Mona Lisa, learning about the Last Supper, and all of his other, John the Baptist, the baptism of Christ, all of that. It's so interesting. The paintings are beautiful. There's pictures and artwork and all sorts of things throughout. Pictures and artwork all throughout the book. All sorts of stuff, all his designs, all the things that he was planning on building or designing or bringing into reality that never happened. Just the book just is so good at keeping you engaged through all of it. Leonardo da Vinci was truly a man who is worth reading about, even 500 years later. He was ahead of his time by centuries. The things he was thinking up, he figured out why the sky was blue in 1500. He figured out everything that, you can even think of, like, that's, objective and, not, he figured out everything that would make you question things as a child, and then the things you kind of forget about. Like, you walk outside and you wonder, why is the sky blue? Where's the wind coming from? Where are the bubbles from the water coming from? He designed and made pictures of all sorts of things of, water and hydraulics and looking at all the different ways water moves, what happens when you put an object in water and goes around it. He was trying to build canals. He was fascinated by water, which I find very interesting. Just so much stuff. So much stuff. I highly recommend reading this book, Leonardo da Vinci, biography by Walter Isaacson. Walter Isaacson, too, did such a great job at writing this. He puts a little bit of himself into it. It's mainly obviously focused on Leonardo da Vinci, but he puts a little bit of himself into it, and I liked it. He's really good at writing biographies. I'm going to have to read some of his other work, but I highly recommend this book. If you're somebody who's interested in there's so much to learn too. It's not a self-help book, but there's so much to learn from Leonardo da Vinci. Always be curious. Be a perfectionist. Only do what you love. Only do what you're interested in. So many things to learn from Leonardo da Vinci, and just pure entertainment, honestly. I do not regret reading this book at all, and I highly recommend it to anyone who is interested in reading their first biography or who loves biographies. This is absolutely a book you need to read. Leonardo da Vinci was truly an incredible human being.